Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today's episode is different, but I'm very excited for it. And I have some phenomenal people here with me. So, we're just going to start with a round table because I like introducing everyone first before we actually talk about what we're going to talk about. Tori, why don't you start? Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tori. I run the Booktube channel Tori Talks, and I'm also the author of Phased, which is a dark YA fantasy, and I also have The Bloodstones, which is a dark epic fantasy coming out later in 2023.
Very nice. And whoever wants to take up the mantle from there, I guess, Andrew.
I'm Andrew D. Meredith, and I am the author of Thrice, which is a Slavic fantasy. It was the SBFBO 8 semifinalist this year. And then I also have 2 books out in my collation saga, both Deathless Beast and Bone Shroud. And there are more coming for both series this year.
I'm Thiago Abdallah. I am the author of The Ashes of Averin. I forgot to grab the novella. It's back there. But Touch of Light is SPIFBO finalist this year. Shade of Madness, my assistant. Shade of Madness was launched like last week. I have not got a copy because I live in Brazil and things take forever to get here. But Andrew, fortunately, is always with me on streams. And
I'm going to say it looked like you scripted that.
Yeah.
Very smooth.
So, and there's also the free prequel novella, Prelude to Ashes, which also exists in physical form. I'll grab it in a sec.
And also has Griffins.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. A ton of, there you go.
Nice.
K MVP.
Yeah.
I determined the other night, I think to say it has Griffins is the fantasy equivalent to It's Got Pockets.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. So awesome. Yeah, that's me. Oh, let me hold on.
Yeah. So while Thiago disappears, today's video is actually to discuss things more on the author side. So rather than talking as a reader, go for it.
That's the backside.
Yes.
Hey.
I need to get a copy. I actually want to buy a new copy for that reason because that just blows my mind. Thank you so much.
So yeah, I actually did the first print on Amazon, and after a ton of faulty stuff, I did the same as the other ones, jacketed, naked cover. So now if you buy it, you'll get this version.
Nice.
Good to know. So I can order mine with the hardback of A Shade of Madness.
Yeah.
So yes, today's video is to discuss the author side of things, the writing process, editing, publishing, reviewing. How this kind of came up was I have received questions from authors about the reviewing process. I know there's a lot of questions that you all get as well as authors. How do we get started? How do we find community? All of that. So we are going to try and cover as much as we can today. And if you have questions, any comments you'd like to include, be sure to mention those as we go. But let's start off with the writing, because we wouldn't have a story, we wouldn't have a book to try and sell to other people and share stories with if we didn't start writing. So what's everyone's starting point? Donald all at once.
I start with a set of questions for myself of things that I want to accomplish, both in the story and challenges for myself. So I had written the collation as it was in 2017, but I needed something to cleanse my palate. And so I said, here are some tropes I like and want to write about. And then I told myself, but I have to start in 3 weeks, because I didn't want to get stuck in a world building syndrome where I was spending years prepping for it. And so I said 3 weeks, go. And then I jumped right in and then just had to make it up. I was outlined, but I was basically figuring it out as I went along over that winter. So I asked myself questions for the story, challenged myself for problems that I want to try to solve in my own writing as a craft and in the story, and then wing it.
Got it.
So I'm sorry. We knew this was going to be chaos, but my connection froze for a second, and I missed the beginning of the question. It's how we start writing.
Yeah. So when
Okay.
when did you when you decided, yeah, I'm going to write something? What were some of the key things that you needed to look into? Did you just come out of high school? Did you come out of college and you're like, you know what, I know nothing about writing, or I know everything about writing? Where did you go? What resources did you use to get going?
I have a funny story about that because I mean, I don't know. The worst thing you can say is you have a funny story because then people have expectations and it's not really funny. So, with me, it wasn't like high school or anything. I wasn't really. I was never like this writer who's been writing their entire life. I think I've uh, I've always been like I decide I want to do something and then I throw myself into it and then I do it. So I think that actually can be pretty useful with people are starting out because um I started like from nothing from like in the sense of I knew absolutely nothing about writing. All I knew was that I wanted to write eventually. And I think I got the idea that I wanted to write something like in my 20s, but I started to write in my 30s. So I kind of created a plan, like if it were, uh, a college or something. And the first thing that I did was like actually map out what are the the topics or the disciplines, that you need to have, and start researching them. So I wanted to build a solid foundation to create confidence for myself, if nothing else, instead of just like throwing myself in and starting to write. So yeah, I used craft books a lot. I know a lot of people don't really recommend craft books because they can, be a little kind of like strict with super, you know, rules and whatever, and you need to create your own process. But when you know absolutely nothing, I think they're great to just give you a very good foundation of what's what. And it's a challenge just to know what you need to study, because when I wanted to start as a writer, I just thought I needed good grammar and maybe learn how to craft sentences. But like the technicalities of writing are very different from story.
Hmm.
Like we should separate those more when we talk about it, because story is like a whole discipline in itself. It's not like, sure, you need good dialogue, you need good pacing, you need all that, but when you talk about characters, when you talk about arcs, when you talk about plot and all that, you're talking about story. You're not talking about writing. I mean, you can have incredible characters, an awesome plot, developments, relationships, all that stuff, and be technically not a very good writer, and it still works. How many books have you seen of people kind of like saying, oh, the writing wasn't good but I love the story, right?
Mm.
So you need, I mean, to me, the first thing is to understand. I'm gonna try and look into the camera. It's so weird to me. I'm gonna, so yeah, when people talk about that, the first thing you need to know, in my opinion, is to separate those two things. Like, story is one thing, technical writing is another thing, and you should worry about story before you worry about anything about technical writing, because technical writing can be just learned and fixed and practiced mechanically. Story is a bit more intuitive, in my opinion, and requires a bit more work and a bit more understanding and a bit more time for you to get it. But I've been talking long enough, so I guess like that's the path to start, but we can dive into the details later.
So I think, to add on to that, I don't know if you ever heard of like the 5-year plan for writers, but if you look at your writing, if you look at approaching writing like you do college or high school, where you have freshman through freshman year, of or your first year out in the career, and you look at it the same way that high school and college are structured, it can send you sailing. If you say, you know what, I have 5 years, I'm going to work for 5 years to make this work, and in your freshman year, you're working on that toolbox of both your craft and just immersing yourself in story. How many books do you have to read when you're a freshman, so that you can start talking about it in sophomore year before you declare your major and really start specializing in what your thing is. And then, you got your pre-apprenticeship and then just getting out and getting a job, right? But if you look at it as a 5-year plan, of course you can do it shorter. I mean, to that point, we don't know how long our path is. Some people do it very quickly, Jago. Some people take some people take decades before they finally ever get their book out there because they're taking the time. That's fine. It's your hobby that you're playing with, but you don't know how long it will take your trail, how long your path will be to success. And like, it's not a race. It's not a race against others. You're not on a track with other people racing them. We're all running our own timed event, but we're also all blindfolded because we don't know if we're running a 100 meters or a marathon. We don't know, but we got to run. And the blindfold comes off and you just got to run, but it's your race, and the only person you're racing against is yourself. And so you can say, do I pace myself out and say, you know what? I have 5 years, which younger people do. Someone who in high school could say, you know what? I'm going to be a big author in 5 years. They could probably do it if they really buckle down and started in high school or college and say, I got 5 years, I'm going to do this. You can. Some of us who are really old with gray in their beard, we want to get it done faster, but I'm glad that I'm 40 and looking back and going, yeah, of course I would have loved to have been published in my 20s. But I can also look at my writing now and go, no, it sucks, but it's true. Life experience is important. And I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful for what I'm writing now because it reflects who I am right now. And so I'm happy with my path.
It's funny you said that, because I was thinking about something similar like today. I was like, man, I think if I had tried writing something 10 years ago, I wouldn't be happy with it, I probably wouldn't even self-publish it because I wouldn't be happy enough with it. So yeah, I mean, there's the time and the place to do it, and I agree, it's not a race. You can just take your time.
Tori.
Yeah. What was the question? Right.
How do you start writing?
How do I start writing? I think, I mean, I've been writing since I was very little, and so it's always been, books and writing has always been like a huge thing in my life. So I think it kind of comes down to, for me, powerful characters that have a really strong emotional impact is kind of my starting point. And I usually ask the question, whose story do I want to tell? And then how do I tell that story in a way that has the greatest emotional impact or leaves the greatest impact with the reader? And then I start asking myself a lot of what if questions. So when I was writing Phased, I knew I wanted to write a book about werewolves that were hybrids, not shapeshifters. And I started asking questions. Okay, if werewolves existed in modern America, what if there was an organization that, had to control all of that and how they were assimilating into human culture and all that kind of stuff. And you just continue to ask yourself those what if questions to kind of slowly expand. So like I start with the character as my axis and then kind of expand the world out from there.
And I think that says something. Sorry, Kate, we're gonna jump in. I think I think that says something about writing process, that there isn't a right way to do it. Like especially when you're starting, like you do not have an easy path to do it when you're starting. And if you read craft books, most of them will talk about the what if, and like grab the experiences that you've had in your life. What do you think is cool? What inspires you? Ask what if, and until you come up with something. But to me, what I found is I like to do it through theme, which sounds really weird in the beginning because theme is normally an afterthought. But theme is what gives the story meaning, in my opinion, because theme is what makes the characters care about what they're going through. And if the story doesn't mean anything to the characters, then it means nothing to the reader. So, hi, Alan. I just saw his comment.
Just for reference for anyone
just-
watching this
just-
later.
Yeah, just leave it to Alan to break my line of thought. So
Themes.
yeah, I usually start with theme, and like I pick it, and I say, okay, so this is the kind of message I want to explore, not the kind of message I want to drill into my reader, because that's preaching and that's not something readers appreciate. But this is the theme I want to explore. So what's going to be like the quote unquote message at the end of the book that I will explore and show through various points of view, and each of those points of view is going to be one of your main characters, or a way of seeing the world. If you want just one main character, it's fine. But then once you have the theme and what you want to get to, then you need to think about how you want to get to it, which means you need to build your characters, because those are the people that are going to guide your readers through all that story, so that where and how you're going to get there. So that's how it starts with me. And I think it's a really, when I kind of realized this, it became really refreshing and almost like easier, because before you write anything, every author has that, or every person who wants to be an author has the fear of not having ideas. And one of the most asked questions that authors get is where do your ideas come from? The truth is, we have too many ideas, and everyone has ideas, and ideas are always in your brain. They're just like an amalgamation of everything you've lived. So all you really have to do is learn how to fish them out of your subconscious. And there are
Also why
techniques
it's
for that.
important to write it down too.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's times when if you have 50 ideas you've written down, and you're not going to get to them, and you might say, no, I'm totally going to write that book someday. But what you'll find is that there is actually two characters in that idea that you need to use in this story, and now you just cannibalize it and you move it in, because there's I heard some really good advice a long time ago that was don't save things for later. Do all your best ideas now. Throw it all in, because the fact is you will have better ideas. You can't possibly imagine that at this point. Oh, no way. This is what I need to save for tomorrow. No, it's atrophied if you let it sit, because it's not what you would write 10 years from now. 10 years from now, you'll have something better and different.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and just to not like close it out, you don't have to go through theme. Theme makes sense for me. Tori likes to think about the characters first thing. Andrew probably likes to build the world to be in.
Well, and it's kind of like a puzzle for me, because once I have those characters and I know who I want to tell the story about, the patterns between those characters start to show me what theme I'm working with. And then I can kind of say, well, if I tweak here and here, then I'm working with this theme and I really like that idea. So how do I bring more of that in with, everything else?
Yeah.
I don't think I had ever heard you say that, Thiago, and I really respect that you go from theme specifically as opposed to saying plot, because that's really hard for me as a character writer. Is like, I'm now realizing the themes that I've written, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did do that. Oh, that was what I was working through my personal life. Oh, and now I can lean into it. It's like trying to find your own audience, which we'll talk about later, but finding your own audience is how you actually realize what you've written.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm calling it theme, but it's actually just the thing I want to explore, because it's what gives the story meaning to me and to the characters, right? And I think a lot of people don't think about that. A lot of people think, dragons are cool, I'm going to write about dragons, which is totally fine. But to me, griffins. But to me, theme ties it all together. And, that sense of excitement of, wow, this is so cool. This happens to me when I see everything. You won't see it in A Touch of Light because it's only book one. But when I see it, as the whole series, and I see everything connected and together, and theme is the thing that's pulling it all together. And if you read like all of the storyline, like a lot of people say, oh, the characters have nothing to do with one another in A Touch of Light. And if you look at it from a theme standpoint, they're actually all kind of exploring the same theme in different ways. So, to me, I'm not saying people are wrong, but when I was writing it, that was my idea of at least connecting them, even if they don't physically meet in the story. And I think that's super cool, but that's the way that I like to write it. And that might not be the way someone else likes to write it, or even read it. So that's the beautiful thing about writing. There's not like one right answer. It's just do what excites you so that you don't get bored midway.
Yep.
So kind of tying into that, it just sounds like when you're starting, you want some resources, but kind of like you were talking about, Andrew, you think of it like your freshman years, in your first 5 years. Get to know your own writing style, get to know your motivations, get to know what it is you want to tell and the kind of characters you want to show. It sounds like the first little bit is quite a bit of self-discovery involved with your writing and what kind of author you're going to be.
And also learning things you're going to throw away too. I mean, how many of us? I did art for my degree, and so there was lots of stuff they made you buy. I still have most of it, and I don't use it. But I'm not going to throw it away because that would be stupid. But it's just like a good idea. You got to write it down, then you can say it's been trunked. You don't ever throw anything away. But but it is a matter of you getting your toolbox together so you can find the one tool you absolutely love. I have a whole roll of wax carving tools for modeling, and there is one that I use for everything because it's the one. And I was told it was going to be the one, and it turns out they were right. And it's my tool. It's my thing I do. And that's the same thing with writing there's no silver bullet. And that's going to be true for everything we talk about. No matter what stage you're in, there is no silver bullet. We are always searching silver bullets. Everybody in life is searching for silver bullets, but there is no silver bullet, but we keep going after it. But grabbing those tools lets you build your own bullet. And that's what you're after, is what are you trying to build for yourself? Why are you doing this? Is this just to make a bunch of money? Is this to tell a story? There's that none of those answers are incorrect. You have to pursue what it is that you're after that meets what you're after. That's me just saying the same thing 3 times. But and finding those tools and identifying them as tools is important. So you're not just willy-nilly kind of cobbling things together, knowing you have your tools. And speaking from somebody who is incredibly disorganized, my wife will tell you that in the chat. Having your tools hanging up on a wall in a tool shop is important. Having your yarn in your closet well organized so you know where it's going to be, or specifically hiding that one piece that you don't ever want to use because it's super special, or buying a bunch of leather journals so you can say you own them. It's all important because it's what we do as humans, is collect a bunch of junk that we love because it's our junk. And it's the same with writing. We're going to collect our junk, and we're going to then use the junk that we have, and maybe someone else will appreciate it, but it's really more important that we're building something that we appreciate and we enjoy the craft of doing.
So while we're on that, Patricia does have a question. So what is the one tool you each use the most?
Oh, look, she has the same last name as you, Andrew.
Shocking.
Oh yeah, who is that? The opera face.
I would say, for just in the writing process itself, I would have 2 probably. One is music. I always have music in the background when I'm writing, and I will actually make playlists for each book that I'm working on, and that's what I listen to. I even listen to it like if I'm driving somewhere in the car and I want to percolate on the story that I'm writing, I will put on the playlist and I will listen to it while I'm driving. And so it becomes a tool to kind of unlock that immersion ability for me, where I'll put on a certain song for a certain character or something that makes me think of the world or whatever. And that will pull me back in pretty fast. The other thing that I use the most is The Village, which I will probably talk a lot about in this stream. And that is having other writers around me that I can bounce ideas off of and chat with and gain motivation from, because it's a very isolating craft and you can get down on yourself and get in your own head very easily. And I'm that person. So it's nice to have, to be able to throw something out in a chat and just say, okay, I'm thinking this. am I totally overthinking this, or I want to, here's something that's not quite working, and having that second kind of option of set of eyes on it is incredibly invaluable to me.
When you said you use 2 tools, I thought you were going to say Andrew and Thiago for a second.
I mean, basically what I just said.
which to be clear is you asking us something and then you doing it your own way anyway.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, but at least I had the chance to
which
talk
you
it
should.
out. Yeah, I just have the chance to talk it out. That's really what I'm looking for.
There's this theory that's well known, which is I don't know if it's a teddy bear theory or whatever it's called. It's when you explain something to someone, you're kind of like forcing your brain to go through it. So a lot of times, just putting it out there and explaining it to someone, even if the person doesn't say anything, kind of helps you solve the problem. And then this theory kind of came up of some guy who had a teddy bear, and he had problems with coding or whatever, and he would explain the code to the teddy bear, like, I'm doing this and this and this and this, and then he'd go, oh, right. In the middle of his explanation, he'd find his mistake and fix it. So, just throwing it out in a chat, even if one author just trolls you and the other is helpful, it helps.
Not to name names, but
yeah.
So Thiago, did you say your one tool?
I don't think I have like one tool. I think it depends on the problem I'm trying to solve, and then when I find that tool, I kind of keep it in my toolbox, like, oh, this is a very good tool for this. I do like using music, like Tori said. I guess if I had to like pick one tool, I'd say sprints are the one that I found out are the coolest, because giving your brain permission to kind of say, look, you don't have to write for 3 hours straight, because that's a big thing and taxing. You just have to write for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then you'll get 20 minutes to procrastinate and do whatever you want. So that kind of tricks your brain in a spectacular way to be productive, that I only kind of I took some time to notice. So I guess if I had to pick like one tool, I think that would be it. Like now, every time I write, I kind of force myself to do it in 40-minute intervals, and then give myself like 20 minutes. Sometimes, you're on the roll, you write 45, 50 minutes or whatever, but I always try to take a break. Yeah.
There you go.
Anytime, Andrew. Anytime. So yeah, that and outlining, of course. I mean, I don't even know if outlining is a tool, but I'm
gonna argue that it is for me.
Yeah, I would argue that it is too.
Yeah.
I'm not even an outliner.
To me, it's like a map.
Because the more we talk about outlining, I know I don't. While I'm an outliner, I am a discovery writer because of my outline. So the same thing with talking about sprints is that I set up my outline because I'm setting up pins to fall, my dominoes to run, so that I can just go, because that's where I'm thriving. It's not a matter of me sticking to the plan. It's a matter of me having the plan so that I can put the map in my pocket and just go, because then I can enter flow. But if I don't have a plan, I'm just aimlessly walking through the woods. And so my tool is my outline, because it sets me up.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a map. I intentionally call it a map and not a track, because you are allowed to move off it. It's fine. It's just there so that you don't get the blank page syndrome, or scared that you don't know what to write. And people call it writer's block, but I hate labeling it as writer's block, because it's so easy to say, I have writer's block, I can't write. And you don't really dig in to find what's really stopping you from writing, because writer's block is just a term that doesn't really mean anything. It's just something that's like, oh, it's kind of like, I have writer's block. Oh no. But how do you fix writer's block? I don't know. It's not my fault. I'm good at video games, So
I mean, really, it's a logger jam, right? And you just gotta gotta dislodge the log.
Exactly. But you need to find where stuff is jammed. Otherwise, you're never gonna fix it. So calling it writer's block,
making a demand of yourself, and which is often against the artist's way, is that you got to make a demand of yourself. If you're really stuck, you can say, okay, I'm going to go for a walk for 5 minutes. And when I come back, I have to write 3 lines. because I mean, often my writer's block is I know what the next line is, but I don't know the line after that, and so I'm scared of that line.
Yeah.
I think this kind of fits in really well here. JR said, I see the beginning of the story, then I see the end of the story, then I make bullet points to connect them, and then I just start writing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's basically how I outline. I just kind of mix that in with structure. So I actually like bullet points. Certain bullet points are milestones where things have to happen so that your story doesn't sag, for example, in the middle. And you keep things going. You keep the character arcs working. Just story structure is one of the disciplines I talked about that has a ton of stuff that's really, really cool. But yeah, what I do is basically that as well. I start with bullet points of like one paragraph, and
More than me.
I head towards the first milestone. Then when I reach the first milestone, I head towards the second milestone, which is like half of the book, and then third, and then finish out the book. Once you have that, you have your map. So you're not going to get stuck, because even if it's a bad like bullet point, you have something to write, and you can write your story, and then you have the clay, right? You have the stuff that you can mold, and you can go back and fix it. And this is something else. When people are starting out, they think their first draft needs to be perfect. Your first draft just needs to, there's a famous quote, right? The first draft is perfect if it exists, because that's the only reason it is to exist. All you need is words on the page, because then you can fix something that's already on the page. You can't fix something that hasn't been written. So, yeah.
So just to kind of touch base on something somewhat related, do you find pacing matters? Do you sometimes need breaks from writing in order to keep going, or are you just the type of authors that just once you're in, you're all in and you're going right to the finish line? I know for reading, sometimes you need that mental break in order to enjoy what you're doing, because that's important too. So I'm curious on your end how all of that is. Tori,
Yeah,
you
I
can
mean,
go first. Yeah.
I pace myself in the sense that if I hit kind of that logger jam, I will get very frustrated and then kind of need to take a step back just to disengage myself from, because you kind of get tunnel vision when you're in your book sometimes, and it's hard to kind of jostle yourself out of that. So yeah, I will put it down sometimes, or sometimes too, I think, like I hit this point with the original series that I started, that the trilogy that I'm writing now is the prequel to the series that I started 10 years ago. And I got to a point where I wrote an entire first draft for the first book of that series, and I knew I wasn't ready. I wrote it and I was like, this isn't ready. I'm not ready to write this book yet. Now, 10 years later, I'm going back, and now I'm like, okay, now I'm at the point where I feel like I can, really dig in and give this what it deserves. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should take 10-year breaks, but my point is sometimes I think even in small doses, you need a little bit of time to percolate and just, put it down for a day or two and just see what happens, and just read something, or try writing a flat short story and something completely different, or watch a favorite movie, or like anything like that just kind of jostles your brain and fills you with other kinds of creativity. I think is something that I utilize pretty frequently.
Yeah, I find that when I push myself too hard, I start to like lose productivity. Even if I'm sitting like at my computer for longer, I'm not that productive if I push myself too hard. So you kind of need to learn to find what your limit is, and if you're not feeling it, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Self-published authors tend to write and publish pretty quickly, because that's an advantage that we have over trad. So it's kind of like, we need to use that tool that we have. But that doesn't mean you need to burn yourself out. I mean, the great thing about just chatting about this is that everything in writing, to me, and I'm sure to Tori and Andrew as well, is a process. right?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of mysticism that surrounds writing. You know, people think either you're born with the talent to write or you're not, and that you need to write all night and then throw it away and then write all night again, and that might happen. But if you have a process in place, you can find what's causing you to not like what you're writing, go back and fix it, and be more productive next time. So
Mm.
I think pacing is definitely important. Yeah, are you like excited sometimes and have like 10K words in one day? Like if you're super excited about something, sure. Are you gonna have like 200 word days? Absolutely. So you just need to understand yourself, I guess, because
Yes.
sometimes, yeah, you need to push through a bit, and but understanding yourself is really important, because I know, for example, that beginnings are hard for me. I really love writing endings, like that last 25% of a book. And if you read my books, it's gonna show. I really love writing the the last 25%, because it's something like the Sanderlanche to me. It's like I can let loose now. I don't need to hold anything back. I can reveal stuff, and I can finally get to the end that I want. Maybe because I'm kind of anxious, I don't know. But beginnings are hard for me. So every time I begin a new chapter, like it's harder than when I'm in the middle of a chapter, or when I sit down to write and I already have like a paragraph or two written of that chapter. So because I know that, I every time I finish a chapter and I say, okay, I'm done, I try to write at least a paragraph of the next chapter, so that when I sit to write tomorrow, I'm not going to be at the exact beginning of a chapter. So that kind of helps me get going and helps my pacing get going. But even with that, there are going to be days where I'm just not feeling it, and it's fine. And you have to respect that. Otherwise, you're going to force something that you're probably just going to throw away tomorrow. I mean, but this is tricky, because if you get too comfortable with that, then you're just not going to write. But you need to kind of understand where the soft spot is, and try to work with that.
I think
it's
that's a
different for
good
every
point.
person.
Yeah, because you're figuring out the harder parts for yourself, but then you're tricking yourself into making it easier the next time you go to dive into it. So I like that.
Mhm.
I trick myself a lot. Like, I don't know how my brain hasn't discovered yet, but I trick myself a lot. I like kind of researching like, I never go deep into it. It's probably always very shallow, but I like watching stuff about like neuro. I forgot the word. Like just
Neurohacking. Yeah.
Yeah, neurohacking, or just what's the science name for brain doctors? It's
Neurologist?
neurologists.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So neurology and
Yeah, neurology. So I just like to shallowly watch stuff on neurology, and just see what people talk about it, because it really fascinates me. It fascinates me because it's not a widespread topic, I guess. Not a lot of people talk about how our brains work in terms that are easy to understand. And I'm going off on a tangent here. But I saw something called bracketing activities or something, which is something that's pretty common, which Tori talked about. Like, if you put something that you like before something that you don't like, your brain is going to start associating the thing that you like with the activity that you don't like. So it gets kind of easier to do the stuff that you don't like. I mean, I'm not saying you don't like writing, but if you're finding it hard, so maybe listening to music right before you write the same song. Like, I remember I used to listen to I have this character, which you all know, which is very prone to getting fits of anger and losing control. And I used to, every time before I wrote a chapter, I listened to the same song by Rage Against the Machine. So I was like in that mood every time I was going to write the character, and I really loved that song. So it was kind of fun to write, and I did that because I was finding it really hard to write that character, because I had never written anything, and I was really challenging myself to write, a character that felt like emotions from other people, and it was really hard the first time around. So putting something you like, or that makes sense, and doing it consistently, making it into a routine, makes stuff a lot easier as well.
Mhm.
So, with all that being said, once you're done draft 1 or draft 365 and you move into editing, right?
Yeah.
What's that process like for all of you?
We have all three of us have very different ones.
Okay. All right.
So,
Well,
Yep.
like I go to Al. I immediately do a quick polish. Some people will say put it away for a while. As soon as I finish a draft, I go back and read through the whole thing and polish it up and make sure that I wasn't crazy. Then I send it off to alpha readers, and I have 2 or 3 people who I trust to either ask me questions about the plot or hype me up and tell me, you know what, this landed. It's a crappy first draft, but it landed. It doesn't need. Yes, it needs work, but it works. Then I
constructive
polish it
criticism.
again. Yeah, but that's the dev edit point, right? And that's where Thiago he does a dev editor specifically.
I love editing so much.
You want to edit all of our books then?
Most writers hate editing. I love it because it's
I
when
don't
you
hate
start
it.
seeing the book really,
Yeah.
you know, come alive. I just love it. I love it so much.
I enjoy it because it's more, it's less isolating. So the first draft you write, and you can have, your village that's there to answer questions or pick you back up when you've fallen on your face and are convinced that you should throw it in the garbage. And once you get past that first draft point, now you get to share that's the beginning of sharing it with other people. And that's really exciting to me because even I'm not afraid of fixing it, if that makes sense. Like I've gotten to a point where I'm not sensitive about like it's perfect the way it is, so I get excited about fixing it and seeing what it's going to look like. That kind of diamond in the rough is going to start appearing, and I'm going to get more eyes on it. People are going to start giving me feedback about what they liked about characters and the world and all the things. So that's exciting for me. I actually drag more through the first draft than I do after that.
And the cool thing about hitting to that point too is there's no turning back now. Like there's a psychological risk to sharing your story before you finish your draft, because if you sit down and walk somebody through your whole story, it can then trick your brain into thinking, well, I've told the story now, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't have to write it. But if you give it out to alphas and betas and so on, now you're sharing it and they're saying, okay, cool, but when do we get to hold this in our hands? Now you have a team of people who are hyped up about it too, and you don't have a choice. You have to publish it now. It might be a couple of years, but you wrote it. And if you finish a first draft, if it's your first draft of your first book, you've now done what basically nobody else in the world has done, because there's so few people who have everybody supposedly has a story in them, but who has actually finished it?
Yep.
And it's those of us who have written, but we're a very small minority of the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Sarah, Sparrow Springs has an awesome comment, which is what we keep saying.
Yep.
Yep. That's the secret to writing a first draft. Just don't judge yourself. Treat it as a brainstorm. My first drafts are barely coherent. Like when I finish them, they make absolutely no sense. Like characters change names from a chapter to another, and I just put a comment of I need to change this, blah, 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 and then I act like I have changed it just to keep writing, because the rule is don't go back and edit. Finish the first draft, then you can edit as much as you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, first drafts, they don't even need to be coherent. So yeah, embrace the suck is the best advice I've ever heard from to finish a first draft.
Well, and that's something that I got caught up in, and even with the book I'm writing now, I wrote about 40,000 words of it last year, and then I went back and I was like, okay, I gotta go fix, and I got stuck in that loop for several months, and I think that's one of the reasons why now it's slowed me down a little bit, because I hit a little bit of that burnout where I was just like, I've now written chapter 1 like 6 times, but I still haven't finished the first draft. And that's where I'm still very much in the learning process of, okay, I'm writing an epic fantasy. I need other tools that I didn't need for the other books that I've written. And knowing, like, I revised it too fast. I went back way too soon, and I will not do that again because it totally derailed me for a while.
Yeah. You know, to Patricia's comment there about wanting, it's better to hear something bad from an alpha or beta than from a reviewer. If you are a writer and you're saying, but I'm afraid that my alphas and betas won't like it, let's put aside the fact that maybe you don't have a good story and that's what you're worried about. Who cares about that? The fact is if you don't inoculate yourself to reviewers later, you are in for so much pain. Because I know people who are like, oh, I'm afraid they're not going to like it. I'm just going to go ahead and publish it. Like, I want to tear my hair out. They're like, okay, in a year from now, I'm not taking you out for a drink to console you because I told you to have an alpha and beta read it, because you cannot be ready. And if you have a nice big fat alpha beta team, my first alpha beta team, I just cattle called off of Facebook and got 35 readers. I've lost most of them because I kept rewriting the same book and making them read it over and over again. But I had 35 readers. So I got a really thick skin really fast. So now I'm ready, for when a bad review comes along and just sticks a knife in my gut. I'm more ready than someone who says, oh, I didn't need alpha or beta readers. I'm just hoping they like it because I wrote Golden Poo. You're like, you didn't though. And you won't know. And guess what? Now it's unpolished, so of course they're not going to like it. So do everything you take every opportunity you can to curb your own work. If you're not ready, if you do everything you can in your power to improve your story, so that when it does get to street and there is a complaint, you can go, you know what? I knew that was going to be a complaint and I chose to keep it in there. Like, now it doesn't matter. It was your choice to have that one thing that you knew was going to be controversial, but you can't go in with having never had a beta reader and then say, well, I didn't know they weren't going to like that thing. Like, you would have. Sorry.
Well, and that's where, again, going back to the village, choosing, having people in your alpha and beta team that you trust, that have a good grasp of, just the industry, the genre that you're writing in, people that are not yes men, like they support you but challenge you at the same time. And finding that village sometimes takes a little bit of work, but it's then that those people want to see your book and you be the best version of itself. And that's really what makes the difference, because I'm not afraid of sending my first draft to Thiago and Andrew. Are they going to shred through it? Absolutely. Am I excited to see what they come up with? Yes. So it's a completely different experience than just, I'm going to throw this out there to the world, hope people like it. We call that hope marketing, and it's one of my biggest pet peeves on the planet. And just see if people buy it and love it. That's going to work for like one person in every million writers or something ridiculous.
So yeah, it's like sparring, like if you're gonna box, you'd rather spar with someone and know your weaknesses and stuff you need to fix rather than go out there and be punched in the face where it's gonna hurt. So it's just better to do it in practice, right?
Yeah.
I think it's important to recognize too, no matter if it's a book or you're putting yourself out in videos or you're writing a review for the first time, you are making yourself vulnerable in a way. You could write perfection and someone out there might not like it. Not every book is for every reader. And having a mentality of, I did my best. I love what I wrote. There are people who enjoy this. Yes, I get 1-star reviews or someone hates it, but having that mentality of that's okay, that's going to happen is important, right? You're putting yourself out there. You're putting your baby out in the world. Not everyone's going to like the baby, unfortunately. And I think it's important to recognize that when you're doing it and having that mentality of, you know what? It's going to happen. One day I'll get there and I'll deal with it when it comes, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, exactly.
So in terms of building an editing team, because that comes with community, that comes with you've sat in front of a computer and typed away your story, and now someone else is looking at it. Are there resources, places that you went to find an editing team, alphas, betas, all of that?
Yeah, there's a few options. One would be to, and it also depends on what your budget is, because there's several different levels of editing versus dev. A dev editor is going to tell you whether your story works, to line editing, to proofreading. There's resources everywhere. Fiverr is an option. It can work and it can not work. Sometimes you find a really great editor on there, sometimes you don't. And so just be discerning and don't just grab the first person you can find. But you also got to match your budget. And if you have no budget, there are great free ways to do it, like, say, trading a manuscript with another author and saying, yeah, this is going to set me back 3 months because I got to edit your book, but you want to set yourself back 3 months too and edit my book? And now you've got somebody who will do a line edit for you. Is it going to be an editor's level edit? Maybe not, but it's still going to be better than you just calling it and saying good enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have necessarily say 3 months or even call it an edit. Just beta reading is already pretty good. Like, there are tons of Facebook groups with people who are willing to put their manuscript out there and say, it's basically just a person describing their book, this and this. If you think you'd like it, I'd love for you to beta read it and give me honest feedback. And usually if a person reads that, it's because they really love reading, or they are an author who would want to do the same thing in exchange. So you can do that for free. I did that with 2 or 3 people. I started with a prologue and chapter 1, just to see if people felt like they wanted to continue reading the story, because I was worried about that. So you can start very simple beta reads, and if a person wants to continue it and say, hey, you want me to read the whole book and give you an opinion, it's yeah, perfect. And then you can offer the same. Usually, the polite thing is to offer to do the same. So you got to be willing to do that. But to me, what worked best is to build community. And I've been talking to Andrew and Tori a lot, past few months. We kind of built a writing group together, and we bounce things off each other. And Tori and Andrew better read Shade of Madness, for example. Give me a ton of good feedback that I implemented and changed and fixed. And I had other beta readers as well, from super cool people who I met in the community who also beta read it for me and were super kind with their time. So I'm sure when Tori has her manuscript ready, she's going to send it to Andrew and myself as well. And when Andrew has a new manuscript, he's going to send it to me, and we're all going to stop and help each other, because that's how it works. And a new author might be seeing this and say, oh, but I don't know anyone. You're already an author. You know these people. It's your second book, so it's easier because you have people interested in the first book. Well, I actually have a very concrete example, which is a really cool story. Sadir Samir, author of The Crew, he's been in the community for 2 years without having ever launched a book. So he already knew a lot of people, and that actually helped him in a ton of different areas. And I've chatted with him here and there, and you can do that. You can join Discord servers or just talk to people on Twitter. Be friendly, be a reader if you don't want to label yourself as an author. And then eventually, when you have a manuscript, you can ask people. You say, hey, because I don't remember. I think I saw this in the video, and it makes a ton of sense. If you're walking down the street and someone stops you and says, you want to marry me, the answer is going to be no, right? It's 99 times out of 100, the answer is going to be no. And that's also the same
You're
thing.
saying there's a chance.
Yeah, maybe. So I mean, that's the same as offering your book for people to read, by the way.
Yes.
So if
Mhm.
no one knows who you are, you're just noise. And no one is going to want to read your book, no matter how interesting you make it sound. If you don't know the person, and if you're cold calling people, it's not as effective as if you know someone. You don't even have to be friends, but it's like, oh, I've seen this person around, I've talked to them. Yeah, maybe something's interesting. You've already like broken the first barrier, right? You've broken the ice. So just building community is the like foundation for a lot of things, for promotion, for sending your books out, for better reading, for a lot of stuff. So
Just for learning to be in a community too.
Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
But
And
I understand it's hard to find a community if you don't find anybody. But if you're watching this video now and you're not already part of the community, you just got to ping one of us
There's
on
also links
Twitter,
in the
anywhere.
description.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
yeah,
And okay, so it's 2 years from now in 2025, and you're just seeing this video for the first time, and you're like, "Well, Andrew said he could contact me." Yeah. Am I going to be too busy to actually look at your book? Maybe, but I'm going to get you in touch with the community.
Mhm.
Yeah. I've
Who knows
actually,
where I'm going to be 2 years from now?
so I have people that send me ARC requests on a pretty frequent basis now. And I've just gotten in the habit of, first of all, congratulating them for finishing. Yeah, if you can get on Alan's good side, you're good to go.
that was my
Yeah.
strategy. Like people always ask me, like, what did you do? I say, I was friends with Alan. That's it.
Well, and that's what one of the things that, like, again, I will send them back a note and just say congratulations for finishing a book, first of all, because I know how big of a deal that is. So like, huge congratulations. You did, that's awesome. I'm working on my own book right now, which is, it's not an excuse, it's true. And I'm like, I immediately give them a couple of Discord links. Say, get into this. There's been several people that have joined the Indie Accords Discord in the last couple of months that I've sent there. That was just like, here, start here. There's a ton of great resources here, because then I'm still helping them, but it's not, I don't have time, maybe don't have time to read their book, but I can still give them, here's a easy resource. Start here, get on Twitter. Because that's how I met Andrew, actually, is I jumped on Twitter again and kind of was like lurking with all the cool people from the Booktube community. And I don't even remember if I messaged you or if I just happened upon your Twitter profile or something, and you were an author, so I followed you or something like that.
And I followed you back and thanked you for following me, and then it just
yeah, because I always also, that's another so I'm a networking nerd, so I'm going to try really hard to like not totally go off on a tangent, because I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had like 5 businesses, and networking has been at the core of all of them. And one of the things that there's so many little things that you can do that can open so many doors. So for example, I followed Andrew on Twitter. Andrew follows me back. I sent him a note and I said, hey, Andrew, thanks so much for following me. Really excited to check out your books. That's all I said. That sparked an entire conversation, and now we are in a writing group together. And that was what, 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah. And then before that, me and Thiago both entered SBFBO, and we, like my best friend in kindergarten, we looked at each other and said, hey, want to be best friends? We're like, yeah, I could be best friend. And we're best friends, right? But from that, then Thiago was like, hey, you got to get on this Discord over here. And he brought me on to Indie Accords and said, because there's people you got to meet. And I got in there and I met people. I met Kay, I met Andrew Wizard, but I still waited at least a month before I was like, hey, Andrew, now that we've been chatting for a while, do you want to read my book? He goes, yeah, I guess I'll check it out. And I have a reader in him now. He handed me to Nico, and now I've got a super fan in Nico. Hi, Nico. And it took me and that was back in July. It took me until January to get up the courage to try to get a book sent off to Alan, because somebody else, 2 of you, said, I think Alan would like your book. Andrew said, I think Alan would like your book. But I was like, oh, I can't approach Alan. He's super scary. He's got so many followers. He's like the scariest guy online.
Alan is super scary. He's always grumpy online. He's always screaming at people.
He's intimidating.
Yeah.
I think that's so,
fills me with dread.
It cracks me up because I get questions on a regular basis. Oh my gosh, I can't believe so-and-so responded to you on Twitter. Or, oh my gosh, I saw you had so-and-so on your live stream. And I'm like, you guys realize that like these people are not untouchable. And that's the other thing that I think people forget, is that like they're still people. They might be busier people, but that's like, you know, Ellen. But like,
Yeah.
just say
Yes.
hi. Just say
Yes.
hi. Like, it doesn't. I know. For those introverts out there, I saw your comment, Patricia. I promise.
Marry an extrovert.
Yeah, basically. Because they will drag you into everything. No, but even an introvert can just send a message on Twitter and say, "Hey, thanks for the follow." That's it. Because then, even if nothing else, that's established you in their mind as this person is pleasant. That puts you immediately like on a better standing than you were on before.
Yeah, if you want a good marketing strategy, I mean, not a marketing strategy, but genuinely just be nice. Just really be nice, because the coolest thing about this community is that you do not have to be cutthroat. Like Andrew said in the beginning, it's not a race. You don't have to beat anyone, because if someone is reading someone else's book, you need to understand they are getting closer to reading your book as well, because there's going to come a time when they're going to have read a ton of stuff, and they're going to get, I mean, if they ever were going to be interested in your book, they're going to get to your book. So just be nice, don't pressure people. Don't like spam everyone with, you need to read my book. Just be part of the community. Just have fun,
because I guarantee you that the reviewers feel horrible that they haven't gotten to your book yet. 100%.
Yeah, you cannot imagine the number of messages that I got. I sent out arcs, and obviously it's really cool if you get reviews before or on launch day. But a lot of people are like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be able to get to your book," and it's just fine. It's yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Kate. I did not mean to call you out.
Never allowed back. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that was wrong. But what I mean is, it doesn't matter. You're not on the timer. What I answer to people every time is like, I much rather you enjoy it than read it under pressure.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's why I wrote the book. I wrote the book for it to be enjoyed. So yeah, maybe I'm not gonna get the review on launch week, but I'm getting other reviews and I'm getting people talking about it, and it's fine, because bottom line is, you want people to enjoy your book. If you're not nice about it, they're not going to enjoy your book, so you're shooting yourself in the foot. So yeah, just be as cool as you can. Yeah, genuinely as nice as you can to people. Like, don't force it.
That's why like I don't agree that your book only has like a 2-month window to live, is because there's so many readers and influencers out there. If they all, be great if 100 of them read it in the first week, but that's just not going to happen, except in odd circumstances.
Well, for example, Phased came out in November of 2020. I didn't market it because I didn't really have a community at that point, and I didn't really have a place where I felt like it fit. So I just kind of sat on it for 2 years. Now, I mean, it's been getting into, people have been picking up, people have been reading it, and I'm just happy that now it's not like it disappears. Like you said, like it's there, so you can market it anywhere at any time.
And you are also more aware of who likes to read what.
Yes.
So that circles back to where you're trying to find people who like your book. Not everybody's going to like your book, and you don't have to be friends to everybody. There are people who I initially thought I was going to be like, that's who I have to get in with, and so I'm going to be friendly to them, and we're going to be best buddies, and it didn't happen. That's okay. It's like high school. We all never leave the playground. It's all playground play, right? So at some point, you're going to meet somebody who you think is the cool kid, and you try to become friends with them. They're not interested. They have their own circle. And you're going to find your best friend on the playground and go, hey, want to be best friends? And you're going to play for the next 5 years outside. So the more time you spend actually interacting and not just begging for a review, the more likely you're going to find an Andrew Wizard who can match a book to any other reader and go, you know what, this book is not for me, but I know 5 other people who will love this book with a passion undying. And have you met Andrew? And they're going to hand me off to them, and they're going to read your book. So that's networking. That's networking in a nutshell. And the only way you're going to figure it out is by getting out there and doing it.
Yep.
So are there other tools that you use for promotion? Because we did get this question earlier from iAnonymous, asking what tools. So is networking your main strategy for promotion?
It's hard to say it's the main strategy because it makes networking sound like it's not genuine.
Mm.
So what I think is networking is almost like a prerequisite, in my
Right.
opinion.
Yep.
Building up that resume.
Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not a prerequisite. Like there are tons of people who do well, without social media. That's so saying it's a prerequisite isn't right. But for those of us who haven't been so lucky, I think it makes the path a lot easier because you get to, and a lot more fun because you get to know a lot of people. And I'm an introvert. When I know you, it doesn't look like it because then I let the chaos out. But when I don't know you, I'm pretty reserved. It's pretty hard for me to approach someone I don't know. It doesn't feel comfortable. So, just being there, lurking sometimes, and like reacting to messages on Discord is a start because it starts breaking the ice. And again, it's like the neurology thing. You're like, in your brain, you're participating. Maybe that person sees your reaction and maybe has seen your name, knows who you are. You can comment on a thing or another, or just say something like, laugh at something someone said, or if someone mentioned something that you like, you can say you really like it. And if that's the only comment you do all day, it's fine. You can go on baby steps, and then suddenly these people, and then now you're comfortable with them, and just being there every day makes it slowly a lot easier. And now you're suddenly having fun, and now you're just talking to people. You're not trying to sell your book or anything. You're just talking to people, right?
Yeah, I mean, drop some emojis.
Yeah,
I mean, like
Gifts?
I mean, look at Katie Andrews, right? She's an introvert, and she
my
drops emojis on everything we do, and I love it because you're like, I know there's something happening because Katie's watching, and when she has something to say, she says it, but she's not there to just blast herself, and so she's somebody we all want to protect and love because she's our Katie, right? And we love her for that. So if you're like, I don't want to get involved. I want to get involved. just emoji on everything, just so you feel involved, so you start feeling comfortable. What can you do to make yourself feel comfortable? You don't need to force yourself out there.
Yep.
Just
and
go out there.
It's become, like you said, like I know that if I comment anything anywhere on the Discord, that within 5 seconds or less, Katie will have an emoji on it.
Yes.
And that makes me feel better because I know that someone is going to interact with what I just said. And so it's like a mutually beneficial like thing that, and she's an introvert. So it's not like,
and I guarantee it gets easier.
Yeah.
Even being an introvert, like once you've interacted with your first Discord community, you kind of have like that safe space. So even if you try another and it doesn't work, you can go back to that safe space, or you can just stay in that safe space for a while.
And it can be finding that one friend too.
Yeah.
Because then you have the extrovert who will summon you and
another
pull you
extrovert
into every conversation.
I don't know. Am I pointing at Andrew right now?
Yeah.
Andrew was like into the indie Discord. And,
With so many caveats.
But I mean, go ahead, Chico.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's really weird the way that you make friends, right? Because I remember seeing Andrew around on the Oasis Discord, but we didn't chat a lot. Like, I saw him like once
involved at that point.
Yeah. He was untouchable.
Yeah, I saw him like once or twice. But we never chatted. And then we both entered SPFBO, right? And then we were on this other SPFBO Discord. And I think Andrew approached me saying something because we kind of knew each other. We had kind of like talked once or twice. And then suddenly
I think it was just networking. It was just something where I was like, hey, your book sounds cool. Oh, you meant you released the prequel and you said Griffins. And I said, Griffins? And you said, yeah, I'll throw it at you. And I read it that weekend. Yeah. And I started just pumping you up. And then I realized you actually had a really good book and started pumping you up some more. And yeah.
And then we just fortunately we weren't on the same blog, and we could cheer each other on.
That would have ruined
Yeah.
everything immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, and then I just remember Andrew saying something, and I was like, yeah, that's what you do for your friends. And I remember his answer was like, we're friends. I was like, to me, we were. If you don't see me as a friend, I'm sorry, I guess. But it's just it's weird. But it's just you kind
Tiago,
of.
did you just admit that sometimes you miss some things in comments as well? Because I seem to remember a certain scenario that happened recently where I missed the implication of something you said.
Oh no, I miss stuff all the time.
Okay,
But that
just
doesn't
making
stop
sure
me
you're
from-
saying it on public record.
No, yeah, that doesn't stop me from making fun of people, like if they miss it as well. But anyway, I mean, we kind of derailed the conversation to how we met, I guess. But
But
it's
it proves
just,
the point.
Origin
yeah,
story.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
just to prove the point that it's sometimes in the weirdest of ways of just approaching people and just being there and
Yep.
saying
Well, and I mean, Tom in the comments is making, there's been several comments about Discord. If there are multiple social media platforms, pick the one that feels comfortable to you. If you like Instagram and you like the layout of that, there's a book community on Instagram. Just start commenting on people's posts, search for books that you like. If you're on Twitter, same thing. Like, just kind of look around, follow some of your favorite authors and look to see who's commenting on their posts. Like, try a Discord. There's multiple options, or commenting on Booktube videos. So you can kind of like start somewhere and pick the platform that doesn't intimidate you as much as whatever, if it's Discord or whatever. But
And it's also it's talking about the weather, right? So if you're on Instagram and you're commenting on Instagram images, and you start seeing the start of some of the same names, and then you pop over to Twitter and you see somebody who you weren't even following, who you comment a lot on the same posts, you can say, just like you would in college, oh, you're from Spokane too? Hey, remember, did you go to the Milk Bottle for ice cream? Yeah. Well, same with books, right? Oh, hey, I saw you were commenting on Cassidy's channel, and I loved that book too. Yeah. What did you think about such? It's just talking about the weather. It doesn't even have to have substance, but you're making connection enough that now you have substance because you're creating shared experience to say we both read the book. And that's the great thing about books, right? Is that we all have these shared experiences of books that we've read or books that we've read about because we haven't had time to read them, and we can still have shared experiences on a show we've not actually watched.
Yeah.
So-
And so sorry, I was just gonna circle back and actually answer the question of if we do promotion, because we kept talking about networking, but I mean, there's a ton of stuff that you can do for promotion. The golden rule to me when you're starting out is that readers are more valuable than royalties. So that's like something that I'd like stick on my wall. Like, readers are more valuable than royalties. If that means pricing your book at 99 cents, if that means doing free promotions every like 3 months or whatever, then do it. Because if you gain a reader base, people are going to talk about you. And when they talk about you, you start to gain some traction. And you're going to find that, that $4.99 book that no one was buying is really selling like 10 copies a day at 99 cents. And you're actually getting more money with lower royalties because you're selling more, right? But now those are, even if you're getting like close to nothing, that's 10 readers that you gained in a day versus 0 that you had. So like promotion and getting out there is like ingrained into everything. And I think this goes back to what Andrew talked about, a silver bullet. People think, oh, if only my book gets reviewed by Kay's Hidden Shelf, then yeah, I've made it. It's not like that's one thing. You need to do that for everything. It needs to be in your pricing strategy. It needs to be in your networking. It needs to be in, if you want to run ads, you need to understand how and where to focus your ads, and how much are you willing to actually invest to gain readers versus, actually making a profit out of it. Like most people recommend you do ads once you have at least 2 or 3 books out, because you're probably going to make a loss on the first book and get people into the series, and then you're gonna kind of recoup it with the other books. So yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that you can do for promotion. The ones I'd recommend are the things that I talked about, like Rand Carroll talks a lot about this. Remove the barrier between your book and the reader. Pricing it at 99 cents, especially a debut. Like No Heart for a Thief, James L. Doolan, he did that, and he had like 150 pre-orders or whatever. I didn't know that strategy when they released A Touch of Light. I had 35 pre-orders for A Touch of Light. So James is already starting like at a much higher level, because he's in the Discord with us, because he's talking to us, because he's listening to, he's like, what should I do for strategies? So yeah, pricing, networking. If people are interested in your book, I will give the book out for free. I mean, if a person's like, dude, I can't afford your book, but I really want to read it, it's like, do you want a copy? I will give it to you. Because I just want people reading my book. The more readers I have, the better. So, don't be afraid to do that. Well, it's like, oh, but I give 100 books out for free. Or are those like 100 readers I'd have? It doesn't matter, because those are going to be 100 loyal readers that you're going to have for the rest of your career, basically, if they like your book, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's how I'd go about starting promotion. There are a ton of things that you can do, but just building the readership is the main one to me, because once you have loyal readers, it kind of snowballs like by itself. Not by itself. You always need to tend it. And email lists, obviously, like stuff like Story Origin, having a free novella, for example, that you can offer people who sign up to your email list is a great way of giving them a sample of your writing with no commitment. Kindle Unlimited is another great way of giving people a sample of your writing with no commitment, because they don't need to pay for Kindle. I mean, they pay for Kindle Unlimited, but they don't need to pay for your book, right? They're paying for Kindle Unlimited. So you give them a chance to like test it out, and if they like it, great. If they don't like it, that's fine. Move on. But yeah, that's how I at least start. We could like talk 3 hours just about promotion. So
maybe another episode.
yeah, join Spiffball. Spiffball is like the best.
I just want to give credit to Tom, who's been networking in this live chat as we go live. Well done.
And then Tom, to answer your question about how to find people in Discord, that's the hardest part about Discord, is that once you're in a Discord, anybody who's in that Discord you can then friend and move on from. And a lot of people who own their own Discords, like Alan, in his profile, you can find, if you find him, then you can find his Discord, and so on and so forth. So it's definitely, you have to follow the threads to find people. You can't just, it's really difficult to just try to dive bomb grab somebody in Discord without being in the Discord with them.
It's not like Twitter that you follow them. You just
Correct.
have to join a server. Then there's a ton of people on that server.
It's a glorified forum. It's basically, it's the way the forums of the 90s worked. They're just more doodads attached to them now.
Yeah.
And not courier font.
I want to talk about this comment quickly from Matt. I'm too scared to read most self-pub books because I feel really bad if I don't like it and say bad things about it and hurt feelings. I mean, that's any book. There's an author behind every book. And yes, self-pub, they don't have the same like sheer network that Trad does.
That is a good point though, Matt, because like Trad has a shield, right? But the shield is a fake shield, right? But the shield is that, well, your bad comments about a Trad book doesn't matter, because Trad's not going to do anything about it except stop publishing them. But the author is not allowed to say anything either, which is good because it defends you from them if they have a bad attitude about it. But also it teaches them to be mature and just keep their mouth shut. We're all entrepreneurs as self-pub who have to kind of learn out of the gate to keep our mouth shut and not comment when there's a bad review, because that's bad networking, right? And it doesn't hurt. Yeah, sure. And Tori, Kayla and Tori can probably talk to this more on what your philosophy is on whether you should or should not leave a review or just fade away,
So
whatever. So what do you ladies have to think about that?
Tori, do you want to go first, or do you want me to jump in?
I mean, I would love to know your thoughts on that first.
Yeah.
I have thoughts, but I want to know yours.
So I think there's a balance. As a reader, as a reviewer, I am not going to like every book. Not everything is going to work for me, but some of those things, all of those things might work for someone else. When I am reading and reviewing a book, I try to look at all angles. Yes, this is someone's baby. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I can still focus on the positives in the review and just quickly note the things that did not work for me and maybe why it didn't work for me as a reader. Am I a character-driven reader and this was just full action and plot-driven? Are those important things to distinguish in the review? If it really was just bombed for you and you really don't want to hurt someone's feelings, let's say it's a review request. This author reached out to you, they gave you a copy of the book. You can talk to them. You can say privately, like, look, these are my feelings. And just giving you a heads up, I'm going to do my best to make this as positive as I can, but this just really was not for me. And you can decide what to do from there. I think it's also important to say, because we don't have to review every book if it really was not for us. I think there's a lot of pressure to review everything you write or you read, and even share everything you're reading, right? There's a lot of pressure for that. Everyone wants to know what you're reading. Everyone wants to know what you thought about it. But sometimes you just want to read something for yourself. And if it doesn't work, you can leave it. Recently, I left a 2-star rating on a book. And it's because for me, it was okay. It was fun, adventurous in ways, but really was not for me. It didn't match me as a reader. So I think have your opinion, have your thoughts. You're allowed to do that. And you can rate books what you want to rate them, but you can do it in a positive light and you can do it in a considerate way.
Just the fact that you're worried about that, Matt, too, is important.
Yeah.
It shows that you're being considerate versus a troll who's just looking to read and wreck people's books by 1-starring, right? So
yeah,
just the fact that you're worried about that is fantastic, because it means that you're going to be considerate in however you handle it.
And just to add too, I've had conversations with authors where I was like, listen, this really didn't work for me. I'm really sorry. I have to DNF it. And I've had experiences go both ways where it was like, all right, never talking to you again. And the opposite, where they said, you know what, the things that you've mentioned, I've been thinking about, and maybe I need to do something different. Yeah. So I think, take it with a grain of salt, just deal with it as it comes. It's not, I know when you're an introvert and social interaction is scary, you don't necessarily want to go out to an author and be like, well, but like you said, Andrew, the fact that you have that worry, that concern shows that you're thinking of the author as a person, not just as like a machine that pumped out a book that you're just going to trash.
Yeah.
And do forewarn them, though, if you're going to drop a star just because it's thing in our title.
Yeah.
So your turn, Tori, then I'll give the perspective, another author perspective.
Yeah, so I've had several instances where I have DNF'd a book because it was not for me. And there's a couple pieces to that. One, I believe very heavily in being honest about what I like and don't like about books, because if I have a channel where I only absolutely love everything, people are not going to trust my reviews as much because they don't know what I actually like, what my tastes are. They might know, okay, she really loves this, this, and this, but like there's nothing to compare it to. So I don't for me, it's really important to, when I do not like something or if I DNF it, remembering that it is a subjective opinion first. And I can go on my review and I can always find something that I'm like, this was cool. Always. There's always something. But it's how you say it too. If I come in and I say, okay, so this didn't really work for me. There was a love triangle and an insta love situation, and it just really was not my thing. That's not what I enjoy reading. It also had this, and this kind of things, more as a presentation of facts of things that are in the book. And this is why I tell authors not to be afraid of lower star reviews either, because if I come in and I see someone rated Red Rising as a 1-star review because they hate dark coming of age, action packed, fast paced books, that tells me that I'm going to like it. Right? So you can gain a reader just as easily from a lower starred review as you can from a high one. Just, it's the way you say it. Like, don't come in here and try to trash the author because as a person, because you're talking about their book, not them, first of all. And you can find, even if you don't like things, there are ways to say it that are still supportive. Like, it doesn't have to be just that's what bothers me, is when people come in and they're just here to trash the author and trash everything, and this is a garbage book, and I mean, like, that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. And
So
yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
for it.
I'm sorry. No, I just want to add, Matt, that I think they covered it pretty well, but I will say this: I think it's a completely legitimate feeling to say, I don't want to be the one responsible for tanking a self-pub author's career if I one-star their book, right? And I know it looks like that, but I'll be honest, there are self-pub authors who would kill to have any kind of review on Booktube, just any kind of review. And if it is a 1-star review done in the way that Kay, Tori, and Andrew talked about, like, this did not work for me because of this, and this, but people who enjoy this, and this might like this book.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna send people in droves to read a book that has been 1-starred if they follow your channel and they kind of like have the same reading taste as you. But people who are willing to actually listen to the review and look beyond the star rating, because I think that's also something, like, people put too much weight on the star and not on what the person is saying. That's why, I mean, as an author, the only thing that really, really bugs me is when someone just gives you 1 star and doesn't say anything. It's like, please just tell me what just give me feedback, because we're willing to listen and we're willing to get better, and we're in this, your career only fails as an author if you give up.
Yep.
So, if an author gets a 1 star for a certain book, they can always write another book, and that book can be better. And you might not be willing to give that author a chance right now, but maybe if someone else is, and you listen to that review or watch that review or read that review, then you might give it another shot because you already know that author. And there's a lot to be said as well of when one person reviews something on Booktube, other people start reviewing that same book on Booktube. Like, I mean, most people know that Alan was the first one who got my book, and other people started reviewing it. In their reviews, they would say, I saw Alan from the Library of Alexandria reviewing this book, and I got interested in it, and that's why I'm reading and reviewing this book. So it's that kind of, there's no such thing as bad publicity, but I know it feels bad, like, oh, I'm trashing this person's career. So first of all, you're not, because they can always write another book and get better. So if you're giving them positive constructive feedback and not just saying this book sucks because it's self-pub and it's what I expected of self-pub and whatever, this book could maybe have been better edited. I found this and this in editing that I think could be better in the next book. That's a lot more constructive than saying it's self-pub, it doesn't have editing, I knew it, self-pub sucks, right? That's not true, first of all. And if the book needed more editing, then you can say that in the review, and if the author is savvy enough to pick it up and maybe focus on editing a little bit more in their next books, they're going to get better. They're going to have a better chance at, and there's something else, which is you might one-star it, but if the book is good, or if the book finds its audience, right, it might not be for you, but other people will find, will find that book and will read it because you put a spotlight on it, right? So, you might actually be helping that person in a weird way just by reviewing it, because other people might like that. So, I mean, I'm rambling at this point, but I'm trying to get to the point as well, is that self-pub isn't that different from trad if you look at it in this perspective. Because here's the thing. Yeah, trad authors like Joe Abercrombie and Brandon Sanderson are not going to be affected by a one-star review, right? Because they have millions of readers and a ton of marketing budget behind them. But if you're reading a trad author that's a debut or isn't that big, guess what? They don't have all that marketing behind them. They might not have all those readers behind them, and trad can drop them pretty quickly, to be honest. They can drop, investing in their marketing pretty quickly, and that author has no control over that. So it can be just as dangerous. And I'm not doing this so you don't review new trad authors. But, this kind of sense of protection that we get from trad might not be, it might be an illusion nowadays, is what I'm saying.
Well, it's like the publisher might drop them, but the only person that's going to drop an indie author is the author themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's where having a village that you can go back to and have a drink when you get your 1-star reviews, and we all build each other up, and that's invaluable, because then those reviews don't stick.
Yeah. And I mean, I always tell people this, like, I never even wrote a letter to send to trad, not because I think indie is better or whatever. It's because I analyzed both paths, and the thing that I wanted was to have control over stuff like this. Like, if I decide to invest in marketing, then I am deciding to do that. I don't have to convince someone else to do it for me. I want to be the entrepreneur. I don't want to work for a big company and depend on other people making the decisions about my career. So in a sense, it's almost as if it's kind of less quote unquote dangerous reviewing self-pub author, because self-pub authors have more control over what they can do. Rather than what people call mid-list authors, or
we also can't buy our reviews.
Yeah.
It's something that comes from trad, and if it launches brand new author and they open with 100 reviews, they were sourced by a marketing department. Those 100 reviews, and when we first start out, we're just trying to get and we have to earn every one of those. So even your bad review still gets us above 10.
So yeah, long-winded answer, but I hope it, shines a light. And, we're always open. We're pretty friendly.
So what I'm taking from this is I should go and read both of your books and tastefully trash the ever-loving hell out of them. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
I can't say, Matt, that I don't have a thing until book 3 of Collation. So you got 2 whole books before you get irritated with my titles.
There you go. So in this topic,
my title is A Touch of Light. So is that already a loser?
It has an of, and yet no. Yeah. Well, because you put a the at the beginning. So you've met Matt's requirements for his new algorithm for the perfect titles.
Oh, okay.
He published that this morning, the perfect algorithm.
Oh,
Matt,
awesome.
It uses a
Matt
D20.
on Books did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Different Matt. Yeah. There's several Matts on Booktube. Yeah.
Yeah, there
Matt,
is, and I can see the beard. Yeah. Oh man, sorry, Matt.
That just lost you. Just lost you a star, Andrew.
We got a 3 now.
Yeah.
So along the same lines of reviewing, because this is a part that I get asked a lot of questions about as well. I get emails with review requests, and I would love to know, what are your tactics for review requests? Do you do them? Do you not do them? Do you have a game plan when you're about to go, hey, would you read my book in exchange for a review, an honest review?
Start talking to the person. understand what kind of books they like before anything else. If a person does not like a sprawling epic fantasy with a ton of characters and, you know, a lot of stuff happening, I'm not going to recommend them my book. I'm not going to recommend them Deathless Beast. I'm not going to recommend them stuff like that. So, yeah, I think it goes back to all the networking talk that we had. If you network and if you're friends with people, you probably won't even have to ask them to read your book because they're going to be interested in your book. And that's the best way, in my opinion. Like, the best game plan is to not have to pitch your book to people. What I like to do as a thank you, and it is a genuine thank you, is offer people to send them my book without any strings attached. Just like, you know, if people have like big booktube channels, I'm all just booktube channels, not big booktube channels, or just I am always thankful because they're putting a lot of time in, and I know it's like as hard as you know, as the work that we do to write a book. And booktube draws readers to books, so I'm always thankful. So like, if anyone with a booktube channel ever, you know, expresses interest and says, hey, I'd really love to read your book, I'm always open to sending it to them, you know. And, you know, I am scatterbrained and I'll forget at times, so people need to poke me, but I will eventually send them the book or offer them, you know.
I love Alan's comment here.
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
emails for review requests from people I've never met who address it to Bob because Bob is in my email address.
Yeah.
And then they always say that they love the channel and they don't even know their name. Yep.
Yep. Well, and I think that's interesting because of the review requests I've gotten, there are some people that I can tell know who I am, and there are some people that are like, you're going to love my book. I think it's going to be a great fit for you. And then they give me the blurb and I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
how is, explain how this is a good fit for me. Like, where is that coming from? And yeah, again, for me too, it goes back to the networking because, you know, releasing an epic fantasy later this year, I really am a big believer in relationships before business, always, no matter what. And so I have worked really hard to build relationships within the community with as many people as I can because I genuinely enjoy being around those people and having relationships with them. So that's like, without me being a writer, if you take that out, I would not do anything differently. Being a writer, it is definitely, now people are coming to me and saying, oh my gosh, you're writing a book this year. I'm so excited. I want to read it. And that is, it's an awesome side effect. And that's the way that I look at it. It's not the point of why I'm building those relationships, but it really, you know, boosts also my excitement to release the book because I know that I have a network who's going to be excited about it with me.
Andrew?
I'm a terrible salesperson.
Oh, okay.
For so long, and it makes it hard because I'm honest. I mean, I'm not to knock sales, but that's part of the thing too. Is like trying to sell a ice to somebody from the north is stupid because they don't need it, right? Well, I can't do that, and so my sales tactics have always been to be honest, and sometimes that's also bad because then you're self-deprecating of saying, here's a book, I don't know if you're actually gonna like it though. That was really difficult. But like Tori says, once you know what somebody likes though, like right now, I mean, like now that Nico likes my books, it's not because Nico likes my books, but because I've learned of what he likes and what he dislikes. I have a much easier time of being able to go, you know what, this is what you need to read next. And I'll hand him a book, and supposedly I haven't turned him wrong yet, but I've only given him 2, so I don't know if that counts yet. But knowing what somebody likes is important. Knowing what Kayla likes. If all of a sudden I learn that Kayla really likes some grim stuff, I can start throwing some grim things at her that I wouldn't before. Yeah. You have a threshold, and so yeah, it really is just knowing what people like and stalk their Goodreads. And Goodreads is not great; it's got its problems, but it does give a library of what they've read. And you can start getting a good very complicated Venn diagram of what they like to read, and then throw them at you. So,
and look, you're never going to be sure.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
can be sure this person. Oh man, I've been like burned so many times. I'm like, this person is gonna be great for my book. I send it to them, and then they don't like it, and I was like, oh,
Mhm.
it's a bummer, but it's fine. It's like okay, like it's fine. So I just recommend like don't tell people they're gonna love your book
Mhm.
when you're trying to send it to them. Like if you want to send people a book, just remember that if they have like social media or a YouTube channel or whatever it is, them holding your book up or just posting a picture is plenty.
Mhm.
So if you send them a book, send them the book without expectations.
Yeah.
And every time someone, it's the marketing kind of like thing that people always repeat, that you need to see a product like 7 times or 9 times, whatever, before you make the decision to buy it. So every time someone different posts a cover of your book somewhere, you're putting it out there for people to see it. So if they see it 7 times, then they'll eventually remember you and go, oh, okay, so yeah, I'll take a look at this, right? um and please don't ever pressure someone you've sent a book to read it. Like never ever ever, if they don't touch your book, forget you sent it to them. Just if you make the decision to send them a book, send them the book and don't ever talk about it again. Wait until they come back to you, or post a review or whatever. But try and find books that compare to yours, right? Try and find books that people mention in your reviews, or stuff that they say they like. And if you're pitching your book, then tell the reviewer, say, people have said this book reminds them of so and so. So if you like those kinds of books, maybe you'll like mine. Maybe you'll like mine. Not you're gonna love mine. It's gonna be, because aggressive marketing is anti-marketing in my opinion, because
Yeah.
it's not genuine, and people like that kind of book doesn't exist. It's like
Well,
it's the perfect book and everyone's gonna love it. It's like it raises red flags like immediately. So just be honest about it. Say, I think you're gonna like it. If they don't like it, it's fine.
I think too, you can also be looking for things that people hate that you hate too. A couple things we could throw under the bus would be Akatar and Witcher, right? So I wrote a Slavic fantasy, and in fact it was Brandon Sanderson at a pitch thing I did with him who said, this sounds like The Witcher. And so I started pitching, oh, it's like The Witcher. And it's like, it's not like The Witcher at all. Oh, no way. And, I was able to become, at least conversational with Bookborn because she hates The Witcher. And I was like, and for reasons that I completely agree with. And I'm like, hey, we have something in common here. Let's chat. And so we were able to chat. Akatar is a great example too. Just the joy of getting to watch Alan's tirade on Akatar and knowing how much Tori hates it. I know that if they didn't know each other, I could give them books that I knew one liked to the other for the simple fact that they both hate Akatar.
Mhm.
And so that I mean, sometimes hatred can be a bond that brings us together. But it is valid, because if you find the things that people don't like, it also allows you to make sure you defend them against having to read that sort of thing. You're like, you know what? I don't think you're gonna like my Thrice, but you are gonna like this because I avoided this thing you do not like.
Mhm.
And that's just as valid of a pitch as positives.
Yeah, and Nico made a comment up here as well, and I want to talk about this a little bit, where I'm with Nico. I actually appreciate when an author reaches out to me, even if I am crazy busy and I might not be able to accept the review request. I can point them in the direction of other people who might enjoy it based on what they describe. But I appreciate it because I might not have heard about it until like years down the line, if at all. And one thing I really like in the emails that I get is I really appreciate when they list the book, the description of the book. They've taken a look at my channel, like you've all said, or they take a look at the Goodreads reviews and they point out themes that I've enjoyed. And they say, hey, I see you like found family. You mention it like once a month in your videos. And my book has found family along with these other themes or tropes or, character driven narrative, all of that. I think it's important to take time if you really are wanting to invest a review copy in someone and you don't know how to make that first step, just list it all out in a concise manner and give them time to respond.
Yep.
Let them research it, because every reviewer is also going to be different. I'm going to process a review request differently than Tori or Nico. We're going to look at it differently. We're going to pinpoint different things, and we're going to respond in different time frames. So every reviewer is different. It's not like a standardized business of administration where we have set procedures on how we process these things. Everyone's different, same as every author. You can reach out in different ways. Absolutely. I've gotten messages on Instagram that are just a paragraph long that start the conversation. Absolutely. For me, the thing that takes longer with those is that I have to do more research. And there's not always research available because the book's not out yet.
Right.
So then I have to ask a million questions to try and narrow it down.
Please include how long the book is.
Yes.
That's something I've gotten 2 or 3 now where they don't mention what the page count is. And I'm like, I'm going to be could be a completely different answer if this is a 250 page book or if it's a 700 page book, because that's, yeah. Well, and also recognizing too that like there's a lot of work that goes into the review side of it too. So for example, if I really love a book, filming, yep, same, Ellen. Filming, reading the book, writing the Goodreads review, putting it on my social media, filming the review to put it on my channel, editing the video to put it on my channel. Like there's a lot of work that goes into that. So we're being picky because of that, because every book that we review at that level takes a lot of work. So that's why, it's important for you to do your research when you're picking who you want to read your book, because we're doing, it's a two-way street there.
Yeah. And, we want to make sure that we have the best experience out of it that we can. We want to make sure it's a good fit just as much as an author does. So we're going to take our time deciding, getting back to people. And let's say, I know for myself, and I know you do this as well, Tori, at least I'm pretty sure you do, where if I can't accept one as a review request, I will probably, if I think it's a good fit, put it on my personal TBR. And I will try and get to it when I can. But I'm going to recommend you to a bunch of other places or people who might enjoy it. So it's at least a starting point when looking at review requests and reaching out to people.
Yeah.
So to keep the conversation going, let's close out with some questions, because we have had some questions here at the chat and topics that have come up in Twitter. And I'm sorry, Thiago, for always tagging you in those questions when I get them. You're my go-to for that.
Please do. I get too excited. I was like, I answered the first tweet with like, oh, this is a lot to say in the tweet, so I'll just say this. And then suddenly I had tweeted like 10 tweets in a row because I just got, carried away. But that happens.
Let's start with that one then. And that question, I think, was how can you make your book be a most anticipated release or read?
So I think we talked a lot about this. Like here, we touched on a few points when we talk about, promotion and building community. Like if you build community, you're going to have people shouting about it. So that's like a big thing. I love Discord. I love the way the platform is set up. I love the way that you can interact with emojis and GIFs and just, I love how it can be a fun place when you when you find the right community. So I definitely recommend you join, the Keymark Discord, the Indie Accords. There are super fun places like Andrew Wizardly Reads his Discord, Dom's Discord as well. Obviously Alan's, Knights of Alexandria. He was about. I left Alan like for last because he keeps saying I betray him. So I love Alan.
And every
Alan,
Discord's very, very different too. They have all different flavors. And so you may find one and you may say this is chaos and I hate it. And other ones are very, very ordered and
And the Fantasy Fellowship as well is a very big Discord, but that's very, very cool as well. But please, don't jump into the Discord and say, I'm an author, here's my book, and send them the link. Get to know people, talk to people, build community. Like, don't talk about your book straight off the bat. Like, if people
It's a
are
long
interested,
game.
yeah. Again,
Yeah.
it's
You-
a
I
lot
mean,
easier to pitch
you-
your book to your friends.
Usually in the, if you jump into a Discord, there's a little introduce yourself thing. So you can say, hey, I'm an author and this is what I write. But like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's different than like what Thiago is saying, where you
Yeah.
come into the general
Posting your
chat.
Amazon link. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to people, get to know them. If places like the India Accords have reserved spots where you can immediately pitch your book. So there's a whole channel where you can pitch your book, say what it is, put the blurb there, and then people who are interested are going to jump in and talk about it. So you don't have to be active in that way, right? So building community, first one, big one. The process, I mean, have an awesome cover. I'm so proud of this cover. I'm so proud that this cover was what trapped Alan into reading the book and got him excited. But covers are important, and you need to study it. You need to understand how to do art direction for a cover. A great illustration does not make a good cover. You need to know the basics of design, of composition, of guiding the reader's eye, because you have to remember that the cover is going to be a tiny a thumbnail on Amazon that's going to be among a bunch of other tiny thumbnails that's got to pull the reader's attention, right? Like everything, a cover is not going to be for everyone, but try and understand the theory behind it so that you can pick a good artist that'll build a cover. You don't have to art direct the artist. This is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is learn how to discern what's good and what isn't, so that you can pick the right person to do your cover, and so that you can come up with a good concept for your cover. So, I mean, I'm not going to dive into cover design here because that's another hour. But that's I think the cover is the number one marketing tool that gets overlooked, because people want it to be cool, and it doesn't have to be cool. It has to sell your book. It has to draw people's attention, which usually it's cool, right? It sells your book and is cool, but
it needs to be not uncool.
Yeah. So cover, building community. I've already lost track of my tweets here. I had it open and I closed it. What else? I think those are the things that I usually say. Oh yeah, just send your book out to everyone who'll have it. If you can't afford sending physical copies, that's fine. Maybe have 5, 6, 10 physical copies that you can send out. Send out e-copies if people will take them. Some people really do prefer reading physical books, but send your book out.
Send your audiobooks out.
Yeah, just send your book out. Do not be afraid. Do not see it as losing a sale, because you would not have that would not be a conversion. That person would not buy your book if they don't know anything about you. And again, readers are more important than royalties when you're starting out. And for a lot of time, like at the beginning of your author career, I still live by that mantra. If someone wants to read my book, I will send it to them, at least the ebook, if they can't afford it, right? So it is very important to build your reader base. People don't explode out of nowhere. You have to build your reader
unless you're Alan. To call back on you talking about being, you're building readers, it really is also about you just being a good person, right? Because I know if I find out that a particular author, no matter who they are, trad or not, is a bad person, I'm not going to read their books. So don't be a bad person. Be a person people want to hang out with anyway. Because it doesn't sell the book, but it doesn't unsell the book. And being a jerk does. It will unsell your book. So don't be a jerk. be the person, be the change you want to be the good you want to be, and you want to see, and write the books that you want to read. So,
and you know, if you keep like doing that and working at that, just send your book and building, but don't just build community with other authors. Like try and build community with reviewers and booktubers and everyone in the community. Eventually someone will champion your book, and when that someone champions your book, other people are going to start reading it, right? And then it's going to snowball. It
And
happens.
that's all the process of finding your audience. That takes
Exactly.
time. It takes patience. It takes trial and error.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
Yeah,
like
and
Andrew saying, people come in, and when people come and ask us questions, they are looking for a silver bullet. They want the instant reader base, and they don't want to have to really socialize or do the work sometimes. And it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you, because that's what it takes.
Yeah. Like anything, if you're driving to accomplish something, whether it is music, writing, it is work. It's never going to come easy.
Nope.
One of the questions that we had as well, I can't find the comment, but I have it here. Mike Molman had a question. What were the, if any, what were the downsides to entering a book into SPFBO?
None.
I would say there's no downside.
There's no downside.
That was fast.
If you have the opportunity, enter it. If only because it gets you in with other new authors, right? So it's like going again, college and high school. It's you getting in with the opening ceremonies to a bunch of people who are also just trying to go at it, and you're going to encourage each other, and from that you're going to find other community, and you're going to find friends that you've made who can lock arms with you and charge forward, and it's going to teach you good habits, and it's going to show you bad habits. It's going to show you so many things that you don't see if all you do is just interact with people on Twitter, because and it's a chance to run alongside each other and say, even if you're still waiting for your review to drop, that everybody's review drops, everybody encourages it. Oh, great, congratulations! Someone gets cut, y'all pour one out for them, because you're doing it. And not doing it just leaves you under a rock. And SPFBO was great for that. And yeah, I'm gonna do it again. And why wouldn't I? It's literally free promotion. So at minimum, you're going to get some kind of review out of it, some kind, and yeah, it's free. So you just have to get up really early to put it in on the morning of.
There is no downside. But I might get a bad review. There is no such thing as a bad review. There's a review. I can guarantee that all the blogs that are reviewing books in Spiffbo are very serious about what they do, and they're very balanced in their reviews. So even if you get cut super early, you still got a review on a big blog, and you're still going to have people seeing your book that might otherwise not have seen it. And again,
it could be your first review ever too. Use what you learned from that review and move forward.
Yeah. Please, the one of the biggest things that people forget, because you wrote your book, it's amazing, you'll love it. Please get into the habit of reminding yourself that you are just noise. I don't want to sound mean. I am not saying that personally to anyone, but before you get traction, before you get to know people, before the community knows your name, and you get into something like Spiffbo and gain some traction and make some friends and have people talking about your book, you are noise. It does not matter how cool your book is. I'm still noise to a bunch of people, right? And being a Spiffbo finalist really did help a lot. I'm still noise to a bunch of people. There's still a ton of people who don't know me, and if I try to pitch my book to them, I'm just going to be part of the noise that's trying to pitch their books to that person. So I am including myself in the noise. I'm not saying I'm above it. I'm just asking everyone, keep reminding yourself that you will always be noise to someone, and as important as your book is to you, just be, just humble about it. I'd say just go
Yeah.
go slow.
And just to add to that, remember when you are reaching out to a reader, reviewer, similar to how many authors are writing in their spare time, they have full jobs, families, readers, reviewers, so do we. This is something we do on the side because we want to, because we like to, and we have families, we might have jobs, we're crazy busy as well. So just remembering that it kind of goes both ways. Time is important to everyone, and we're all just trying to find the best fit that we can and enjoy the books that we read and hopefully enjoy what you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
So any final comments before we sign off?
I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface, and we could do like 4 more
Episode
episodes.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can always come back with another episode if everyone's up for it. But I mean, this
Andy
is the
just
kind
showed up.
Oh, Andy, where have
Better
you
late
been?
than never.
Right at the end.
Is he like saying that after I told people that they're noise? Like, yeah, don't be a dick. Sorry.
But I mean, just yeah, be a decent
You
person.
need tough love sometimes.
Well, with that being said, thank you all so much for joining in, for making this a phenomenal conversation. All their links to books and channels will be down below in the description. We'll put other resources there, and potentially we will be back with an episode 2. We will see how that goes. But thank you all for joining us, for your fantastic questions. And if you're watching this in the future, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time. All of you, have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye.